O cosmic birther of all radiance and vibration, soften the ground of my being and carve out a space where your presence can abide. From this divine union, let us birth new images of a new world of peace. As we find your love in ours, let heaven and nature form a new creation. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight, subsistence for the call of growing light. Loose the cords of mistakes binding us as we release the strands of others' mistakes. Do not let us enter forgetfulness, the temptation of false appearances. Truly, power to these statements. May they be the ground from which all my actions grow. Amen. So some of you recognize that as the Aramaic version, one of the possible Aramaic versions of the Lord's Prayer. And I'll sort of share what that is and where it comes from in just a minute. But first I want to check with you and ask you to maybe silence your phone. Although it's a lovely jingle, kind of adds to it. So how was that experience for you? Yeah, sacred. Maybe a little more empowering than the typical Lord's Prayer. A little more accessible. It had the feminine, yeah. It has the feminine in there. That sacred space, touching a deeper chord within us. So I want to let you know that this month we are going to go all in to this touching of that divine chord within us, to go deeper into that place. So as we prepare for the longest, darkest night of the year, I want us to hold it differently. I know for myself, I kind of grew up in a family. My mother absolutely hated when it got darker earlier. You know, she worked in an office all day long, and when she got home, she wanted to go play tennis or go for a swim. We lived in Southern California, and when the days, when she got home and it was darker, it was a little more difficult to do. So she resisted the whole thing. And then celebrated when the days got lighter. The days were longer. And so I kind of grew up with that same relationship to this change of seasons. And so I want to experience it differently this year. And I invite you to experience it differently with me so that we can maybe explore the creative energy of the darkness rather than something we think is missing or lacking or something that's depressing. Maybe we can open to this idea of the fertile void, of the realm of pure potentiality, that sacred space where we can prepare for the birth of new light, where we can prepare for that birth of new images of a world of peace. You with me? All right. So we're going to take that deeper this month and really dive into that divine union. All right. So back to this different sounding Lord's Prayer. How many of you are familiar with Neil Douglas Klotz or this little book he wrote, Prayers of the Cosmos? Yeah, so when I discovered this, and Donna, I think it was you who were the first person to mention this to me. Yeah, and then we explored it in the seminary, the One Spirit Seminary, and what an awakening! I mean, I had no idea that Aramaic was the language that Jesus spoke, and that he shared his teachings in that language of the people who spoke that language in that area of the Middle East. You know, and that is a different way of seeing the life. That Aramaic understanding is a very different, more holistic, like there's not so much, you know, definition between spirit, mind, and body. There's not so much definition between me and the world around me. Yeah, so you know that the Bible was not written in Aramaic. It was not written down at all while Jesus was alive or even decades afterwards. And in fact, Jesus was not his name. His name was Yeshua. Yeshua was that Aramaic name. And let's just get clear for once and for all, Christ is not the last name. Christ was not Jesus' last name.
Henry's not his middle name either.
What's that?
Henry's not his middle
His
name.
middle name? Yeah. It means the anointed one. And from unity perspective, it's really that Christ, that highest divine self within all of us when we're awake to it. And certainly he was. So the teachings of Yeshua were passed down. It was an oral tradition, passed down from person to person, village to village, and not just the stories, but also because Aramaic lends itself to chanting. So it's also chants were shared, and songs and stories from person to person to village to village. And so when it was first written down, of course, the New Testament, in Greek. It was written down in Greek. Of course, the Hebrew Bible, which we used to call the Old Testament, was written in Hebrew and then translated to Greek. And Greek, the Greek language, as Klotz tells us in the book, reflected a very different worldview. Unlike Greek, he says, Aramaic does not draw sharp lines between means and ends, or between an inner quality and an outer action. Both are always present. So then, of course, the Greek was then translated to Latin and then retranslated to English with a few edits, and, you know, you can see a lot got lost in translation. So there are a few places where there's still, Aramaic is still spoken. I think, you know, maybe in some remote villages in Syria and some other places in the Middle East. It's kind of fading, but it's there. And there are Aramaic scholars. George Lamsa was one of them. Some of you may have heard of his name. I think he did a whole interpretation of the entire New Testament, right? Yeah. So there are people who can help us understand what Yeshua really was talking about and the many possible interpretations of what he might have meant. Because the language of Aramaic expresses in many different layers of understanding. So, for instance, heaven, which is said a lot in the Bible, could be expressed as light or vibration or universal breath or the light and vibration that is within everything we see. You know, it's really rich, deep, and many layered. Also, the language was comprehended not just in the brain, but in the body, because it was a real body thing, a real body prayer. And Yeshua's words in particular were meant to convey a more mystical experience. A more mystical experience of life. As Klot says, we must embrace the wordless experience to which the living words of a mystic point. So, the Lord's Prayer, as it came to be known, is really kind of a cleansing prayer, cleansing those layers so that we can reconnect with the spiritual truth of our being, and so that we can remember what's truly important, which is what every spiritual master and teaching mystic is, encouraged us to do from the beginning of time all the way through now. To really focus on the spiritual truth and what's really important. Because here's the thing, we all crave connection with our source, with our divine source. Because here we are, planted in a world that's asleep, dreaming this dream of separation where we feel we're separate from source, we're separate from each other. Of course, there's that inner thing within us that is craving reconnection. People don't realize that's what they're craving. They think they're craving something else. But it's really that connection with source, with universal love. So it is essential to our well-being that we attend to that we attend to unifying with source, right, in whatever way we do. So we're going to look at each of the lines of this prayer and see how it can maybe help us reconnect. All right, so if I could have that first slide there. So that first line, O cosmic birther of all radiance and vibration. The King James Version, you can say that with me. Our Father, which art in heaven. Right? So the Aramaic word that is interpreted here is more about divine parent. It's not gender. It's not father or mother. And the word for it is really beautiful sounding. And that's Abun. Can you say that with me? Abun. And really, you can feel the vibration in your body, kind of that open ah sound from up here all the way into your chest. Let's do it again. Abun. It feels so sacred, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, so the second part of that, which art in heaven, is Deboishmaya. 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 So that is the light, the vibration, the essence that's shining in everything, that vibrational universe. They really saw it as a vibrational universe. We talk about it now as if that's a new understanding. It is an ancient understanding. It's a vibrational universe. Right? So, okay, let's put the words together and say it together, nice and slow. Abun Deboishmaya. Abun Deboishmaya. Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to give you all of the Aramaic things because I can't say them all, but this one I have worked with before as a chant, so I kind of know that one, and I think it's really beautiful. And you'll get a handout at the end that has all of this that you can take and work at home. Okay, so the second one is soften the ground of my being and carve out a space where your presence can abide, or hallowed be thy name. So in this line, we take this universal vibration and we make it personal to us. But in order to do that, we need to carve out a space. We need to let the ego step aside so that that higher divine self can take hold and lead the way. So it's a very active thing, you see? It's not just about recognizing the divine. We are an active part in it. It happens through and as us. Okay, the third line is, from this divine union, let us birth new images for a new world of peace, or thy kingdom come. So now we've created this clearing, right? And we have aligned ourselves with divine love. And so our heart's desires, our soul's intention now resonate with that one, with that universal one. So we're now aligned with the creative power. We are empowered as co-creators. Again, we're part of this creative process. We're the way in which that divine love manifests on the planet. And peace manifests on the planet, or lack of it, depending upon if we're in alignment or not. So we have a role to play. We're partners, right? Okay, so the fourth line is, as we find your love in ours, let heaven and nature form a new creation, or thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So we have aligned with that presence, that divine love. Yeah, so our desires, wait, is that the one I just did? Yeah, okay. That's 4, right? Okay. So we've done 4. Okay, so heaven unifies with earth, and we are ready to do our part now. We're preparing ourselves for our part of this. All right, so the 5th line is, grant what we need each day in bread and insight, subsistence for the call of growing light. Yeah, a little different, huh? King James Version, give us this day our daily bread. Gluten-free bread. Make it gluten-free, please. And unleavened. Okay, so in that Aramaic understanding, we're connecting with that generative power. So it's not looking outside of ourselves. We're not saying the power is outside of us and please give me the bread. It's that granting is affirming the power is within us. We're activating it. We're calling it forth. We're calling forth that we need for our physical existence, but also for our mental, emotional wisdom insight. So this is that sort of divine, feminine, Sophia wisdom part that all comes together, right, for the call, so that we got everything we need for the call that we're participating in, right? All right, so number 6, the 6th line is, loose the cords of mistakes binding us as we release the strands of others' mistakes. Or forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. So we talked about forgiveness last week and how our lack of forgiveness binds us and blocks the flow, restricts the flow of life, in our experience. And how when we forgive, we're giving the gift of freedom to ourselves. We're also acknowledging that the transgression of others is really a mistake. It's a mistake out of ignorance, that comes out of ignorance. The ignorance of oneness. And we're all ignorant to one degree or another, right? We don't always know our connection. We're not always aware of it. We make mistakes. So do others, right? So this unties that knot. We're untying the knot. And so all of this beautiful understandings, this rich thing that I just shared with you is then pared down to this idea of debt. Do you see what I mean? It's like that language thing is a completely different understanding. There's all of this layer of meaning and richness and feeling that's pared down to this idea of debt, and then mistranslated further into English where you get the idea of sin. You know, it's the Aramaic understanding of that word that we have interpreted as sin is unripeness. Unripeness. So imagine picking a fruit that's not yet ripe, right? It's not fully formed. It's not into its fullness yet. It's unripe. It's a whole different way of thinking about it. And it helps us to understand that person was acting from a place that they weren't quite fully formed yet. You know, not quite there. And speaking of, there's a lot of understanding, interpretation of fruit in this, and the earth, and, you know, coming to fruition in this understanding. And I keep thinking, well, you know, maybe some are unripe, some are overripe. Some people I can think of, rotten fruit. All right. So the next line is, do not let us enter forgetfulness, the temptation of false appearances. And the King James Version, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. So he says in the book that this is the most mistranslated line in the entire thing, right? It's the most misunderstood, because in the Aramaic understanding, there's no one outside of you that can lead you into temptation, least of all God. You know? Least of all. So the Aramaic word nesayuna is more about being diverted from our true purpose. We're being diverted from our true purpose. Or we're losing ourselves in the appearance and mistaking the appearance for the truth. That's something, Nathan, you were talking about when you were speaking a few weeks ago. How we get lost in the appearance and we mistake it for the truth. So then the word evil, once again, huge mistranslation. Yeah, huge mistranslation. It's that unripeness. It is quite a different thing. And yeah, okay, so that's the seventh line. And then the final line is truly power to these statements. May they be the ground from which all of my actions grow. Amen. So now we're empowered, right? We're empowered. We know that that power is within us. We have planted ourselves firmly in fertile soil, so it's time to grow. It's time to take action now. We've done all the preparation. We've done all the work. We are here ready to take action, which is not unlike the fifth principle in Unity's 5 principles. In fact, if you pair the 5 principles with the Aramaic version, someday I'm going to do a side-by-side thing, it's really similar. So this is that fifth principle. We're now ready to take action. And so this beautiful Aramaic word, malkutha, means I can. I am aligned with the glorious light that permeates the universe. That glorious light that permeates the universe. That's how we kind of got the power and the glory, which is actually the King James Version of this line is kind of beautiful. It keeps that energy, that feeling tone alive. So a lot of that is in this. So we are in this glorious light that permeates the universe. We're an integral part of it. It's time to do our part. It's time to take action. We are moving forward in action. And then it ends with Amen, which was the Middle Eastern word that sealed the deal. It was a sacred oath. And it gave power to all of the words that came before it. Think about when you're saying amen. You're giving power to all of the things you said before that. Just like, and so it is, right? That's what we say. And so it is. Gives power to the whole affirmation that you said before that. So the next time you're saying amen, know that you, as a co-creator, as totally empowered now, are giving power to these statements that you just declared. He also says more about this word amen. The sound of the word as it is intoned reminds one of the ringing bell at the end of a Zen meditation. Somehow, all of oneself comes together once more, instantly, in the moment. The healing or making whole is always here and now. The healing, making whole is always here and now. Amen. Let's say that together. Amen. Yeah. All right, if I could have the greeters hand out the handout. So it has this whole Aramaic version. And in the book, he takes each line and he gives you about 8 or 10 possible variations of the theme, possible ways that it can be interpreted. And you know, this is just one version, so if you want all of them, you can go to the book and pick out the one. This is sort of pick, you know, which one you want and put it together like a puzzle piece, and you can play with the one that works for you. So I would invite you to take this home, meditate on it, say it aloud. Say it aloud a few times this week and see how it feels for you. And when everybody has it in their hands, we're going to say it together. Yeah. All right. Everybody have a copy? All right, let's take a breath and really connect with that energy, that place, that sacred place. And together, O cosmic birther of all radiance and vibration, soften the ground of my being and carve out a space where your presence can abide. From this divine union, let us birth new images of a new world of peace. As we find your love in ours, let heaven and nature form a new creation. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight, subsistence for the call of growing light. Loose the cords of mistakes, binding us as we release the strands of others' mistakes. Do not let us enter forgetfulness, the temptation of false appearances. Truly, power to these statements. May they be the ground from which all my actions grow. Amen. All right. Namaste. Thank you.
Hi, it's Reverend Victoria here. I'm at Unity Center of Peace with our house band, Bright Matter.
Hello.
Yeah, and if this video has inspired you or empowered you or opened your heart, opened your consciousness, or even just given you hope, we ask that you support what we're doing here by making a donation today, going to unitychapelhill.org or clicking the link below. And we thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.